Hi there. So it's been a long time since I made my last video. I've been kind of busy. My grandmother came last week, so it was very exciting for me. I had never had a conversation with her, so these 4 days with her was super special. So I feel very lucky to have spent this time with her. She got to see my house. When I look at the things that she's done and she's achieved in her life, it certainly sounds dreamy. And when she hears about my life, maybe not a dream, maybe more like a nightmare, things that she said she would only be reading in a book. We've experienced very different things. Sharon, and you guys know about Sharon, the woman that is schizophrenia. She's a street woman, and while I was walking down the street, my grandmother doesn't move very fast, and I saw behind me Sharon's coming up to me, and I said, "Graham, I'm sorry, I gotta run away from you right now. I don't want you to get in the line of fire if she decides to attack me," because one time I was walking down the street with a woman and her child in a stroller, and Sharon decided to pick up a bunch of handfuls of rocks and throw them at me, and they hit the kid in the stroller. I could foresee something happening to my grandmother. I didn't want that happening, so I said, "Grandma, stay here," and I ran away around the block. Well, Sharon went right up to her and then turned and walked around the block the way that I was going. So I ran all the way around and saw my grandmother a block down and tried to tell her to come this way, and another woman that was walking down the street was between us, and I said to her, "Did you see a woman in the street there?" She said, "Yeah, I saw a woman defecating, taking a shit in the middle of the street." Oh yeah, that's Sharon. So my grandmother didn't look down the street when she came, so she just came directly to me, and we bypassed her. But she said, "Lelania, she just looked like such a nice, normal woman. I can't see that there would have been a problem." So I just think that that's wonderful, because down here a lot of comments from people call her all kinds of horrible names by her appearance, and yet my grandmother, who's almost 100 years old, who you would think would carry some old-fashioned bigotry, thought she looked like a delightful woman. I thought that was interesting. The other thing is I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going back to San Jose to go to immigration. So hopefully Sandra and I will get some answers. I got a job offer 2 weeks ago, and they needed me to have residency. So I gave them all the information about my residency being processed, and the woman said, "Oh yes, this is underway. However, once you receive this residency, you're still not allowed to work in the country." What is the point of getting residency if I can't work? So this is kind of a scary moment to find out the real status. I'm going to go straight to immigration and not just hear it from Sandra. I'm going to hear it straight from immigration themselves. So I'm very excited about tomorrow, and I plan on vlogging and bringing you guys with me. That's a very exciting day, is tomorrow. But today I wanted to reply to a very old and dear friend of mine. What's wonderful is that I am and continue to be friends and in contact with people that I knew when I was 14 years old. It's really neat how 30 years later you can still be in touch with somebody that you knew when you were prepubescent. So I want to talk about this woman that I was best friends with, and I'm going to call her Barbie because she was tall and beautiful and voluptuous and blonde and mature, I thought, when I was a kid. And she dumped me when a lot of people dumped me in high school. My mother dumped me all at the same time. So it was a really hard time for me, and I kind of retreated and became somewhat of a hermit for many years. But years later, she found me on Facebook, and she acknowledged what took place so many years ago. Just the recognition and the acknowledgement of what took place is so good in the healing process. So it's all I need, really, in the healing process. So I think that that was really important, and I thank her very much. So today I've watched all kinds of craziness on Facebook. Over the past 6 months, I've been blocked, I've been yelled at, I've been shamed, I've been defriended. There's a lot of emotions, both people who are super pro-Trump and people that are super anti-Trump. I'm getting it from both sides, and I am not pro anybody. Today, I've watched a woman even defriend her mother because her mother was not pro-Trump. The emotions are flaring, and it seems like so many people have become irrational weirdos. And it also seems like so many people have become indoctrinated in these ideals that seem so prevalent on social media. I don't know if it's going to record on this thing for very long, but if it shuts off, then we'll try again. That's how it usually goes. But my day at work was fine. Thank you for asking. Yeah. How was your day? It was the same.
Okay.
But I am just getting better at covering my ass. So when he tries to attack me, I say, I can only process the information that's given to me. I can't process information that I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true with basically everything.
You know, I didn't realize your mustache was so shiny.
Oh.
From that video you did. Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's a nice light. I like the lighting.
For complimenting my mustache.
Yeah. But the lighting's nice too.
Good.
Yeah, the lighting.
So, let me read to you a couple of posts that I got on Facebook. I am no longer, and I'm sure you've seen this, I am no longer accepting the things that I cannot change. I am changing the things that I cannot accept. I'm getting this from a lot of people from Toronto. A lot of, can I call Toronto the incubating ground for the SJWs? These are my people. Can I call them that?
I think you should.
Okay, we can call it, Toronto really is been in the making for a decade, not just during this, presidential circus election. I'm curious, what are the things that you don't accept that you thought before you couldn't change that you think you can change now? So I wrote what? And I got back, I cannot do anything with other than like it. I'll be called a hater if I reply to this. So they've written bigotry, hatred, misogyny, LGB harm. How? By offering love, acceptance, and support, and raising our children to do the same. Raising children who do the same. Okay, so if you raise your children with love and acceptance and support, like you never did before, this is new, you're going to raise your children with these qualities, and we've always been offering love and acceptance and support while we raise our children. So doing those things doesn't stop hatred. We always knew that murder was wrong, and if we start teaching it more heavily in schools, do you think that murder will cease to exist in social media? Is this from memes or is this from her personal experience? It probably has more to do with the climate of our social atmosphere. If I offer them another idea, they will call me racist or call me a hater. So it's just odd. I'm going to change bigotry and misogyny by giving love and acceptance. Love and acceptance to children hasn't been given before.
If I went to Facebook looking for things that made sense, I'd be a very disappointed person.
Well, right. But these memes seem to be really holding a narrative for propping up an ideology that supports maybe a political movement, a larger movement. Well, let's see, because I looked up the definition of meme. So it's a humorous image, a video, or a piece of text, etc., that is copied with slight variations and then spread rapidly by internet users. So it doesn't necessarily depict the original meaning. It's copied and then put a new slant. So any of the nuances or any of the real information that's there underlining is just cut away. All the fat is gone, and now it's posing as a statement of truth, but it's missing a lot of important information. You teach your children ethics and morals and principles and how to be good people and well-adjusted in the world. Let's teach boys not to rape, and all of a sudden rape goes away. Can we teach girls not to be sluts? Oh, you can't say that! Stereotypical characters of a man are negative, and all the stereotypical characters of a woman are positive. So we want society to be more feminine.
I think that's the deal.
More peaceful. Okay. But when you do that, you're being sexist. And it's very prejudiced to say the characters of a woman are wonderful and the characters of a man are not wonderful. bigotry at its best. Yeah,
Listen,
and I was thinking, I'm
hey,
a fucking man. I think like a man. But I still have a vagina, so I still consider myself a woman. And if I liked to dress like a man, that would make me a tomboy, not a man.
yeah.
So my brain has always worked, I think, more like men in certain aspects. But as I was growing up, I always favored the women to be friends with. I wanted my friendships to be women. So I'm a woman's woman, even though I have a man's brain.
Mm. Well, you know,
Right?
that's
Because
interesting that
men were easy for
you know,
me, and women were this challenge to get them to like me. So I always go for the challenge. Why, if we didn't have different brains, then why would people even make the transition from one to the other? I mean, I used
it's
to wear a
interesting.
tie in high school. That didn't make me a lesbian, and it didn't make me trans.
No, it just made you fashionable,
Yes, thank
right?
you. They
Okay.
have
So
a
it's like they
female
want
brain and a
to,
male body, vice versa.
they want to match the vision of themselves outside to the vision they have in their brain. Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So you're going to tell me more about this Facebook person?
Okay,
What
well,
else
I had
happened?
to just let that one go. Anyways, I had to, with her answer, I had to like that and walk away. Then, like, I scroll up and I see another one. Now, a couple of days before, I contacted this girl. This is a girl that I knew in the beginning of high school. Let's call her Barbie. Naughty little girls that had tons of freedom, and we were learning about drugs, and we were learning about sex, and we were learning about all the things that young people learn when they're becoming adults and they have no parenting, no discipline, no rules. So this is what she writes. My friend Barbie from so long ago posts this. Privilege is when you think something is not a problem because it's not a problem to you personally. A couple days ago, she posted that she's taking feminine studies. Now, this is, of course, very interesting to me because of where I am and the whole prostitution thing and what I've been watching online with all the anti-feminist stuff. That I'm really on par with those people because I get them. I love logic, and a lot of these feminists that they're debunking, are totally based on their feels. And so they're trying to push an agenda that's supposed to affect everybody that has to do with their feelings rather than really fact and what actual things like amendments to laws and stuff that need to. Systemic oppression. Like, these are the words that she's using. These are words that, of course, I've heard over and over this feminist narrative. She's spewing this stuff out like crazy, and she's not online like me. So all this stuff is learnt from reputable sources like universities. And she even wrote yesterday that, of course, I didn't comment, that said something like, she was out yesterday with the Women's Council. And then she says, I know that doesn't sound like very much fun, but it was great fun. Here's a stereotype that everybody thinks, and this is why it's wrong. But you're promoting this stereotype. I didn't say I think that. Nobody else did. But your meme tells me that everyone thinks this way when they just don't.
It's projection, right?
Right. So if you're going to talk about privilege, this is the other thing. They're all changing the meaning of words. Got halfway through a video for bearing, and then I lost interest. But the definition of sexism is to be prejudiced against the sex, especially women. It says that in the dictionary, especially women.
Yes.
Either means prejudiced towards the other sex, or it doesn't. Where's this especially women shit that's coming in? So this is bizarre. All these feminists are telling us the way men are, and that's the same thing. That's just as sexist. And she's saying that it's privilege. When you have privilege, it means you don't see problems out of your own realm. There's also those with privilege who can see a problem that's not a personal problem. There's people with privilege who do see problems that don't directly affect them. There's a whole huge article I read about northern women going to Dominican and trying to help prostitutes, and they're putting their own idea about the failures of prostitution. Meanwhile, these uneducated, poor young women didn't have a voice because it wasn't their voice that they didn't want to hook. So you have this affluent, educated white woman coming in and saying, this is where your problems lie. Yes. Uneducated, poor women are saying, no, don't speak for us. Don't take our rights away. The educated person says, hey, there's a better way of life. I get that, but that educated person is not speaking for the uneducated. So that's a fact. So they do see problems.
Could you say, would you describe that as a form of progressive arrogance?
It could be. It's a bit arrogant to presume you know somebody's problems before they've told you what their problems are. Yeah, but they think, oh, this poor person must need this. But that's not what the poor person needs, because the poor person already has their idea of what they need. They do. They speak for people that they are not. I think that's interesting when you look how that unfolds. And then I wrote, interesting how the privileged speak for others where they are not personally involved. Sometimes they are right and sometimes they are wrong in the assessment of other problems not like theirs. So I think that's a very fair remark about privilege. People with privilege also do recognize problems that don't affect them personally. That's all. It's a truth about the word privileged. So that's what I wrote. Now that is not personal. I didn't attack her. I'm not talking personally about me. I'm not talking personally about her. She writes back, and her first sentence is, let me put my trusty glasses on. Interesting. Or are you trying to call me out for posting this? Now, I tried to call her on Skype the other day saying, hey, like, I'm really excited that you're taking these feminist studies. This is my point of view. I'd love to have like a public conversation on YouTube about this, relevant topic. And she got very, very upset with me. And I had to let her go, and I had to say, look, Barbie, I'm really sorry. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I don't want to upset you. And I had to kind of like calm the situation down because I really don't want to upset her. What I really want to do is have an ongoing communication with her about what she's learning in school. And I'm not going to bombard her, but I want to maybe have another side so she doesn't only have this echo chamber at school and amongst her Toronto friends. Because every single Toronto person I know is fuck Trump. So, and then every single person I know down here is pro-Trump. And it's coming from both sides. So I'd really like to have like a sensible conversation with somebody. And I can't have sensible conversations with the pro-Trumpers because they're really not very smart in many ways. And from the left, I get more intellectual, if I can say. Passive aggressive, more like witty, not just, fuck you, I'm pro-Trump. So I would love to have this ongoing conversation. I thought it might also be interesting for her because it might help her propel herself forward within her feminist class because as I understand, a lot of these feminist courses, they want you to go out and do social justice warrior stuff. They want you to have this narrative and take it out of the classroom. So I just thought that I could be a person that she could take this narrative out of the classroom and use it as a part of her studies as well.
Yeah, and as she could use you as a sounding board,
It's more about human development that I'm interested in. And what I know is that a human isn't finished developed at 17 years old. That's the interest to me, is brain development, and that these women are actually not women. They're still growing girls at 17 and 18 years old. The brain doesn't stop making connections to little neurons and stuff until the age of 25. There's really a lack of options for a girl in poverty. Just in the same way that there's horrendous things that young men have to do for money, for survival, and they don't have other options. They don't feel they have other options. Anyways, let me read the rest of this letter. Okay?
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yes.
So let me tell you what she said. Interesting? Or are you trying to call me out for posting this? It's also an interesting way to begin a response to me. I said it was interesting how the privileged speak for others, and I could give examples where this is so. And it sounds like she's taken what I've said very personally. But what I said was objective truth about the word privilege. And she's questioning if I'm calling her out. And this is kind of ironic later on in this response. Interesting. Or are you trying to call me out for posting this? I have direct experience in most of my lifetime with assault or shitty behavior toward me not being a problem to the perpetrator. Therefore, my right to speak up about it didn't exist for them, and I was silenced to great effect in many different ways. I'm sorry that you felt silenced, but your right to speak has always existed. It's been up to you and what you could handle. I've been assaulted too, maybe to lesser extent, I don't know. And I've also experienced plenty of shitty behavior where the perpetrator didn't care. In fact, I experienced that pretty much daily. That affected my life and how I treated you as my friend when we were kids. For that I am deeply sorry, as we have talked about. You don't have to be sorry. All kinds of things affected me as a kid too, Barbie. And yes, we did talk about some of those things. You did not deserve me throwing you against the wall when you criticized my fucked up family in California. It's actually amazing that you wrote to me after so many years, which was wonderful. I told you I have no resentment or any bad feelings towards you. I remember the things that happened, but the only residue feeling that I carry is the feeling of big love that I had for you back then. As I said, the biggest and most important thing for me is the recognition and the acknowledgement of what took place. And you did that. There was pain I couldn't tell you about behind my decision to end our friendship. Because though you were my closest friend in the world, it became so much about what people were saying about what you were saying about me. And you were doing cocaine and planning trading sex for boots, and I couldn't take how you talked to me about my fucked up mom. Wow, that's a lot of information there, Barbie. Now, if this last sentiment isn't personally calling me out, I don't know what is. Maybe it's things that we could talk about rather than post for friends and family to see on Facebook. I don't mind talking publicly about it, but I kind of like to keep it to YouTube so we can get some neutral feedback. Remember, I was not being personal about you when I was responding to your privilege post. I think the subject is interesting for many reasons. I don't know what you remember kids in high school saying about me, but I do remember a lot of girls said mean things and even threatened me with personal violence. The cocaine and drugs? And trading sex for boots? Yet another story for another time. I do remember my closest friends and my mother stopped talking to me all around the same time. So I retreated in tears and loneliness for the remainder of my high school years. I always liked your mother. I just remember you staying with me in my house a lot. I was always requesting for you to stay over because I was alone so much. And your mom's place was small, so it worked out. As I said to you the other night on Skype, my interest in reaching out to you is partly inspired by seeing my grandmother and going down memory lane. And because I think that we have many similar interests, even if we come to those interests from very different experiences. Both of us have suffered in different ways, and it's nice to share our experiences. I engage with you to share ideas, and I thought we could do that maybe in public forum for several different reasons. But I didn't mean Facebook friends and family on drugs and trading sex for boots. She was worried about me calling her out, and quite frankly, that's calling me out. So what I wrote, pointing any special attention at her, but she's definitely pointed special attention at me. These are great stories to tell, and I would love to tell them. I don't hide anything. My life is an open book. But that is another story for another time, and I'd love to tell it online, but that's not something that she needed to put on Facebook for my friends and family to see. I was on my way down a path of self-destruction that had me eventually lose everything. Surviving that and reaching out for all kinds of help, starting from scratch over a period of years, helped me feel compassion for others with different kinds of oppression. Me too, and as we get older, the world gets bigger. We learn about other ways of life when we experience new conditions. As far as compassion is concerned, I think different people experience it in different ways, to different degrees, at different times in their life. The manifestation of compassion can also be seen very differently too. It's hard to believe, and it's sad, that some people might possess very little of it, while some have an abundance of compassion. When before I was only in life to survive, and really not for much longer, yes, even those I will never know. I don't have much ability to process or analyze without serious challenge, so this is going to look awkward as hell. But I'm trying to amplify rather than ignore what a whole lot of people of color and LGBTQ plus people are saying right now. I think I was always analytical as a child, interested in diving into the whys and the feelings and the words and actions of others, understanding how they came to those decisions of behavior. You know, her reason for doing this is my pain, my pain. So now I'm going to speak for people who I think have oppression, or for people who have oppression. She's gone through pain that she can't process or analyze very well without it looking awkward. So now she's going to speak for other people who she thinks, who she believes are oppressed. Probably figure out how to get past the awkward and learn how to analyze, then she can speak for other people. That's just my opinion. But I'm trying to amplify rather than ignore a whole lot of people of color. Now, when did we start using of color? Because I always thought when you say people of color or colored people, means anybody who's not white. When you say anybody who's not white, you're really lumping anybody who's not white into a group, and that's kind of racist. You frightened me the other night, angrily asserting your right to be racist, and I couldn't find the words at the time, but yes, I will defend someone who I am not and could never be, no matter how ridiculous I look to you or anyone else. Now, I didn't mean to frighten you by sharing my thoughts. It's terribly misleading to angrily say I asserted my right to be racist. That's incorrect. That could be very offensive, insulting, and a damaging remark to make when I'm speaking of free speech and the right to accept other points of view, especially when they differ from yours, from ours. I find that the left will do that. That was that whole thing of just, being able to call somebody racist really shuts down a dialogue, which is degrading the meaning of the word and shutting down legitimate opposition in conversation. As soon as you're called racist, it's like, okay, well, we don't have anything to talk about here because you're not hearing me. You're calling me names now. So she just called me a racist when I was talking about free speech to her. She's saying that I've been frightened her. I frightened her by talking. And I was really nice. I was very, I want to talk with her, so I want to be nice.
Well, you frightened her with a different opinion, not so much by talking per se, but just by having a different opinion.
Because I was angrily asserting my right to be racist. That was her view of me saying, hey, we got to let other people have a voice. We come from a very similar place, and our experiences have brought us here. I don't think our core values are that much different. And since you brought up the right to free speech, I will say this. There are hordes of violent racists validated and energized right now, and continually indoctrinating and silencing their families if they don't agree with their hatred of others. I've been silenced by fear myself. The feeling of fear is very much a personal thing that only you can personally deal with. A feeling of being handicapped. It really can paralyze a person. I know. But it is a personal feeling. And it is a feeling that the individual who experiences fear has to find a way to overcome it if they are able to get past their fear. I agree, there are hordes of racists that are validated and energized right now on both sides of the political spectrum. That's very much why this is of interest to me. I get arguments and insults from both sides. I'm being attacked from both sides. Absolutely.
You're getting double-ended.
I'm getting double-ended. So I'm in a unique position. Because there's the echo chamber of I'm called a racist by the left, which is ridiculous. And I'm called a libertard and social justice warrior by the right, which is just inaccurate. People from the South here, and then the echo chamber of the city folk in Toronto. And
now you know what Sargon of Akkad feels like. Right? He's anti-Semitic.
But you've got two candidates, and nobody speaks for the real liberals that are anti-war. Yeah, going to war in defensive war. Not offensive war. Many of us don't like these ongoing wars. They've been going on in 7 different countries for 10 years. There's no success for any of these wars where the goalpost keeps being put back and there's just no end to them. So that's of concern. And the other, these ideologies, this total clash in the United States of people. And some of these people are borderline racist, but they don't consider themselves a racist. So who is the left to go, no, but you are? And they're saying, no, but I don't think I am. I'm not calling myself a racist. Yeah, but what you just said is racist. Well, no, what I just said is words, but I don't believe that a black person is less than a white person. I don't want less for them. That's their stance. Well, really, but yet what they say is indoctrinated into them. They grew up in the South. People talk like that.
Well, it's unlikely you'll ever eliminate racism because people...
You can't eliminate opinion. You can't eliminate somebody's experience. Discrimination. You can't eliminate hate. You can't eliminate violence. This is a part of humanity. Now you can create an atmosphere where it will be inspired less. If I speak to them as individuals and I ask them actual points, like real substantive information about what their opinion is, it's amazing how similar the opinions are. They've been that way for generations. And you know what? As the generations go on and they get exposed to more positive things, they start to have different opinions than their parents. The red states, they've become less racist than 50 years ago, but it's still there. But when you got the left having this agenda where they're going to push, what you push as a narrative doesn't go away. It becomes more prevalent. You say you don't want that, then the people that are that will push that in your face even more. It's human nature. Like relationships, that's going to make an equal push back. The war on drugs only made drugs more prevalent. The war on terrorism, well, terrorism has increased. And when Trump says we're going to make America great again, because I know where that's heading. Nobody loves Trump, but they love the idea that he's going to push back. That he's pushed back. Well, that he doesn't take shit. Wait. Not some of them do, but most of them didn't say, I love Trump, I'm going to vote for Trump. Most of them said, I can't stand Hillary, so I'm voting Trump. That was a big part of the narrative during this election. It wasn't like Trump has great ideas. It was Trump's better than Hillary. Obama. I go, okay, so they brought in a black man, and he's the voice of hope. But the fact is, when he's out of term, there's going to be a bigger race problem than ever before. Look, it's been all the memes, all the little things that the government puts out of what they're going to fight against. It always goes the opposite way. I mean, later on we can talk about all the things that he's doing, good or bad, and that's important. But they stop being the voice for the average working person. And that's kind of what happened here. The average working mojo guy, he went and voted for Trump. So the liberals have lost the average working guy. This is a narrative for war. You divide the people and you conquer. The only way that Russia could even come close would be as if they use nukes. They can't do anything. Way more than if you take China and Russia and put it together. We're still doubling that. So yeah, they know if they make a strike against the US, there's big problems. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go to war. Then you see these things happen through time. They first get the minorities, and then they get the larger minorities, and then, you know, eventually they had the backing from the patriots. Yes, get those.
Well, actually, it's interesting.
Well, you can see who he's surrounded himself with already, and they all have a history, and you can look at the history of their ideas.
Get together.
Rise up.
And cause a lot of ruckus. Yes, rise up, yeah. But the impetus to improve social conditions for the poor generally comes from unionists that are somewhat educated, that come from the bottom, not from the top. Yes, they might be in contact with the intelligentsia and the elite. Yes, of course. Where do they get their ideas? And they need connections and network. Anyway, how's your camera going? Is it working?
It's still recording. This is a good yardstick. Your right to free speech extends only as far as another person's right to live in peace. Thanks for your feedback. Your right to free speech extends only as far as another person's right to live in peace. Thanks for your feedback. So here's my feedback. The last remark there is the scariest. People can feel uncomfortable or not at peace for many, many different reasons. For any reason they choose. I think it's very scary when you talk about legislating what opinions need to be. Nobody can say something to make another person uncomfortable. There's free speech gone down the tube. There is no free speech. She is saying she does not believe in free speech. This is ridiculous. And to me, that's the most important thing in the West, is our liberty to speak whatever it is. Whoever you are, no matter what much of an asshole you are, no matter how much of an asshole you are, you can say it and people will know that that's what you think. And I think that's very important. So this idea of her pushing an agenda that doesn't enjoy free speech as far as somebody else feels that they're living in peace or that they have comfort is really a scary thing. This is the best system for fairness that we've created yet. Legally, we should all have the same rights. That it's only legal to have certain opinions is a very scary concept. How do we judge where free speech extends? I think that the yardstick of measurement should be, you're not threatening physical harm to somebody else, then you're within your rights of free speech. People say things that make me uncomfortable and make me feel unpeaceful all the time, but it doesn't give me the right to silence them. I have to deal with the fact that there are many different people in this world and they all have varying opinions that are different than mine, and if those opinions make me uncomfortable, tough shitty for me. I have to deal with my own discomfort. If I start to legislate law to quiet people who make me uncomfortable, we're going to live in a very scary place. So wherever somebody is uncomfortable, okay, well, there you go. You know what makes me uncomfortable then? If we're going to make this a law, it's got to be fair. What makes me uncomfortable is that churches don't pay tax. That makes me real uncomfortable. It makes me really uncomfortable when somebody really ignorant speaks in a way that's like willful ignorance. You can give them all the reasons in the world why that's just incorrect, and they will still willfully, ignorantly believe it. That makes me uncomfortable. Can I stop them from saying their beliefs because it makes me uncomfortable? It doesn't make me feel peaceful. This is why free speech is so important, are keeping it open for us to use the vocabulary that we choose to use. Now, this is sort of a way for me to start a discussion about feminism, about free speech, and about human rights. Although there is other work to be done, because I don't know how many states you can still be fired if you're gay. So if you want to make it fair, that has to be changed legally. You can't, if you can't fire somebody for being black, then you sure as hell can't fire them for being gay. And to me, that's human rights. There is some work to be done, but when you push this narrative like an everyday thing, it's always been going on. Transsexuals have been using the bathroom of their choice since the beginning of time. Nobody had a problem with it. You're in the beginning stages and you don't quite look what you want to look like. Then you might have some problems, maybe. But now that they've amplified it, now every stupid mojo in the South is talking about how they're going to use our bathrooms. They don't even know what they're looking at. They could look right at a transsexual and say, okay, little lady, you go on in, have a good pee-pee. But what's wrong is what's going on with Peterson at the University of Toronto, where he's being forced to use vocabulary that is not part of biological evolution. He's being forced to call somebody something that he doesn't see. Like a tomboy wants to be called a boy. Well, you're a girl. You look like a girl to me with a tie and short hair. Just because you're butchy doesn't mean you're a boy. It's okay to be a butchy woman. Get over it. Butchy women have been happening since, the beginning of time. Some men like butchy women because they take care of the farm and business and whatever. I find that a lot of this has its roots way, way, way back on the internet. Gamergate time. I don't know if you know Gamergate. This is about bad journalism, not listening to the people, big business or big government trying to dictate what our narrative should be. When you have a country that makes its money from the military system, the media has really pushed a narrative of divide, socially engineered, that's been put out and adopted by the establishment. We're busy fighting amongst ourselves. So, yeah, I watch a lot of anti-feminist channels, and I think that they're logical. I think that they're smart. And I think that they're really not sensitive at all. Sometimes logical decisions aren't based on any type of emotion, scientific fact, things that have predictive quality, things that we can prove as being correct. And those are the things that we want to use to help create a healthy society. You know about my prostitution videos because it does lead into this feminist issue, and because Barbie, you're going into feminine studies. I thought that if we could converse while you're going through these studies, that you might have another viewpoint. I could also learn about the feminine studies that you're learning. So we could have a nice exchange of ideas, and I could bring them into some real life things that I experience on a daily basis. I guess my interest in talking about the prostitution would be to shed some light on what happens down here, because it seems like there's a lot of interested people. I'm really interested in biological evolution, human development, and from what I understand and from what I conceive is that the brain actually doesn't really fully develop until about 25 years old. Girls that are hooking at 17 and 18, they're really being put in danger as far as their ability to think about themselves in the world in any other way. I like the idea of women having the freedoms of choice, but I also like the idea that they get to be women, make those decisions when they're children and they're underdeveloped and they don't know the opportunities that... There's a lot of ambiguity here, and I think it's a dangerous path to go down, and I want to talk to her about it. And if she's going to school about these things, yeah, I basically want to convince her that I can provide a safe space for her to have a debate about this. I really would like to continue to speak with her. You know, I would love to talk about the past, even the things that she brought up with. It's hard to put everything in place and in order, because a lot of things happened to me around that time. When she brings up cocaine, I'm like, oh yeah, Sean, which was an ex-boyfriend of mine. And then I remember, oh yeah, we were friends when Sean and I were seeing each other, because I remember a strip of photographs in a photo booth with 4 pictures of us all together in a photo booth. So I'm like, okay, so that jogs back a memory for me. But, you know, I'd love to talk to her about those things. They actually would make great story times. I have so many stories of insane things that I experienced, attacked many times when I was a child, and there's a story behind each of those things. And so she's got those stories too for her, but it seems as if as an adult now she's slanting that towards, oh, the reason why is misogyny or oppression. And I don't see those things that happened to me in that light. So I think that would be great to talk about those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to talk.
I hope that, you know, maybe she'll see this video and talk to me.
Well, that's kind of the idea, right?
So do you think I've forgotten anything here?
Because
it's getting dark.
Well, the lighting doesn't seem to have changed much.
Well, it is getting dark.
Okay. Well, no, I can't think of anything.
Well, let's catch up in That being said, this is a long enough video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you tomorrow on my big vlog day to San Jose for immigration. See ya. Bye.
All right. See you.